couple of weeks ago, I got into some trouble with some online leftists who, for some reason, watch my show obsessively, like Joy Behar. They were furious that I said something everyone knows is true, which is that the primary problem facing homeless people isn't the fact that they don't have homes. Homelessness is instead a symptom of many other problems that homeless people have, almost invariably including drug addiction, a general disinterest in being productive members of society, and usually that disinterest is fueled by drug addiction or alcoholism or mental illness. Like all harsh truths that happen to be undeniable, you're not supposed to say that out loud. So in response, a swarm of leftists attacked, and we're very upset about it. That's a theme here today on the show, and in every show, really. I'm going to play one example of these attacks because it's important to understand the reasoning from the left on the topic of homelessness, such as it is. And as just one example, I'll show you a clip from a YouTube channel called Secular Talk. Now, there are two things you should know about this clip before we play it. First of all, he spends the first minute or two of the video before the clip we're going to play explaining why my position on homelessness does not comport with the teachings of the Bible. Now, he's totally wrong about that, of course. The Bible, after all, the Bible is the book that says if a man will not work, he shall not eat. You know, it does not recommend or condone a sedentary, self-destructive lifestyle. But putting that aside, this guy's channel, again, is literally called Secular Talk. He's an atheist. That's his whole shtick. And yet, while totally rejecting the Bible in every way, he will still, like any other secular leftist, try to use it on occasion to win an argument, which is always funny to watch in a pathetic kind of way. The second thing you should know is that the title of this video of his says, "Homeless people don't need homes." Matt Walsh. The statement is put in quotes, quoting me as saying, homeless people don't need homes. Problem is, I never said that. He's making up a quote and putting it in the title of the video. So we're off to a bad start. But anyway, here's the clip that helps set up our discussion today. Let's watch.
So his point is, hey man, it's not that they don't have, the problem isn't that the homeless people don't have homes. Yes, it is. They're drug addicts. They're drug addicts and they have mental health problems. That's his point. Okay, well, let's look at the numbers on this. So this is from Addiction Center. The National Coalition for the Homeless has found that 38% of homeless people are alcohol dependent. Okay, 38%. Now, keep these numbers in mind, and I'm going to give you the context for it in a second. But let's just point out 38% is actually not a majority. That's not a majority. Okay, more. 26% are dependent on other harmful chemicals. Okay, so 26% are drug addicts, 38% are alcoholics. Okay, got it. Then they go on to say, oftentimes, addiction is a result of homelessness. In other words, he flipped the causation. What he's saying is, you're an alcoholic or you're a drug addict, and that's why you became homeless. What they're saying is, no, oftentimes the homelessness comes first, and then because you're homeless, you kind of want to take the edge off of your harsh reality, and so you turn to substances, whether it be alcohol or other kinds of drugs. So he flipped the causation. Now, I'm sure there are some instances where the causation does work in the way that he laid out there. Some people are alcoholics or they are drug addicts, and then that helps as one of the factors to lead them to become homeless. But in many instances, maybe even more instances, maybe the majority of instances, it's first comes the homelessness, and then in order to take the edge off of your harsh reality, you turn to substances so that you can survive.
Well, that was great. In order to debunk my point, he proves it. Now, first, he's throwing out random statistics that we're supposed to believe on face value because they come from a group with homeless in the title. He tells us nothing about where these stats come from, how they were compiled, what the methodology was. He just tells us, well, some group says this. So like, okay, well, so automatically I'm supposed to believe that? I mean, if you actually believe that only 26% of homeless people are using drugs, if you really believe that, then you are simply too dumb to bother having a conversation with. And I don't believe that anyone believes it. Really, only 26% of homeless people are on drugs. I mean, it just so happens like if you live anywhere where you see homeless people, if you drive around, see them in Nashville. I can't remember the last time I saw a homeless person that wasn't obviously on drugs. But the funny thing is that even if we buy these clearly absurdly undercounted statistics, my point still stands. We saw there in the screenshot that 38% of the homeless are alcoholics. 26% are addicted to other drugs. That's already 64%, which is a large majority. which is exactly what I said. But then we also see in the screenshot that he didn't highlight that 33%, again, according to these stats that are obviously being very, very conservative in their estimates, but still 33% are mentally ill. So 38 plus 26 plus 33. And then you've got, according to these stats, the sum total of homeless people who are addicts or mentally ill. Well, that's pretty much all of them, isn't it? I'm no math whiz, but that's like all of them. Even if we allow for some overlap in these categories, which obviously there's going to be, still it's clear that almost all homeless people are either mentally ill or on drugs or both. Which, again, was exactly my point. But then we're told that actually I have the causation flipped. He insists that homeless people first become homeless, presumably due to systemic racism or the economy or whatever, and then to cope with their terrible situation, they turn to drug abuse. He has no evidence for this. There's no proof of it. It's just nothing but his own assumption. An assumption that does not comport with basic common sense at all. Like, what is more likely? That a totally functioning and contributing member of society somehow ends up homeless and then says, well, I might as well smoke crack. Or that a person starts smoking crack, it takes over their life, and soon they're on the street. Now, there may be cases of the former, but the latter is obviously the way this usually works. There's no denying it, and also no reason to deny it. Well, maybe there is a reason. For the left, the appeal of this causation argument is obvious. It absolves not just homeless people for their conduct, but also the politicians who spend ever-growing amounts of taxpayer money on so-called homelessness initiatives. After all, if homeless people are living good and virtuous lives and only turn to drugs because they don't have a roof over their heads, then you might think it's reasonable for large states like California to spend $42,000 per homeless person every year. You might not mind the fact that, by contrast, California spends less than $14,000 per year per student in grades K through 12. That disparity should bother you because all of that spending on homelessness reduction is simply encouraging dysfunctional people to make the same decisions that made them homeless in the first place. And we have a lot of real observable case studies to prove this, not random statistics by some group that you found on Google. Like actual real world events we can look at and see, oh, so well, how did that work out? Okay, here's how it worked out. It turns out that when you give a homeless person a roof over his head, when you make them housed people instead of unhoused people, as the left likes to say, they still resort to using drugs and behaving dysfunctionally. Whether we love it or hate it, AI is here to stay. AI is expected to create over 100 million new jobs globally. Some jobs include data scientists, product designers, robotics engineers, and surprisingly, tax managers with AI skills. ZipRecruiter is the best way to use AI to help you find people with these skills. ZipRecruiter's AI identifies candidates who are best suited for all kinds of roles. Right now, you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/Walsh. If you want the most qualified candidates, well, ZipRecruiter uses its powerful AI to find and send you people whose skills and experience match your job. Then ZipRecruiter lets you easily invite them to apply, to encourage them to apply sooner. In fact, over 3.8 million businesses have come to ZipRecruiter for their hiring needs. Get the leading edge on hiring with ZipRecruiter. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a qualified candidate within the first day. See for yourself how easy this is. Go to this exclusive web address to try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/Walsh. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/WALSH. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Take a look at this news report this week out of Rutland County, Vermont. This is one of the many places that's decided to house homeless people in hotels free of charge on the theory that'll make everything better. Because the only problem, according to the left, according to the guy we just saw on YouTube, the only problem for homeless people is just that they don't have a home, and you give them a home and everything is better. Well, let's see how that's going.
Issues at hotels that are under the state's homeless voucher program are causing concern in some communities. According to DCF, there are 927 households still taking part in that program. Rutland County has the biggest slice of that number with 236 households. Our Ike Ben David joined the tour of a hotel in Rutland County, which officials say has been causing problems.
Brett Desan lives in the Cortina Inn on a state-funded voucher. It's been a concern for the local community.
Not good. Hectic. Just crazy. Too crazy. The drugs is out of control.
Tuesday afternoon, local and state officials from Rutland County toured the Cortina to see the issues up close. The hotel is just off of Route 7, which currently has 130 rooms that use the vouchers on the state's hotel voucher program.
It's depressing.
You could smell the feces smell. That's the way the whole place smelled it.
Doors all around the property were unlocked and open.
So there's feces all over the place, according to the police chief. Everyone's on drugs. The homeless are leaving the hotel to rob nearby businesses. Hearing all that, you might come to the conclusion that the problem facing all these homeless people was not, in fact, their lack of a home. After all, the enlightened residents of Rutland, Vermont, have removed the variable of homelessness here, and yet these people are behaving in exactly the same way they did without a home. We gave them a home, and the problem didn't go away. It's almost like the homeless person's problem isn't that he doesn't have a home. Now, is this an outlier? Is this an aberration that only occurs in Rutland County, Vermont? Let's see. The mayor of Casper, Wyoming is currently in full-on panic mode because roughly 200 people who have been living in a vacant motel in his city have managed to trash the motel, in addition to leaving 500 pounds of feces on the streets and the sidewalks. Quote, it's like nothing I've ever seen before. It's third world country stuff happening in Casper, Wyoming. That's according to the mayor. Now, I don't know how the mayor came up with an exact estimate of the cumulative weight of human fecal matter, and frankly, I don't want to know. But the point is that the homeless moved into town and completely destroyed it. They had access to a vacant motel, to housing, and they proceeded to demolish it and make it unlivable. Again, this is a repeatable scenario. I'm not cherry picking. It's happening everywhere that homeless people find a place to stay. The Los Angeles Times recently reported that a hotel called the Mayfair sustained $11.5 million in damages while it was being used by the city to house homeless people as part of something called Project Room Key. Quote, windows of the 294-room boutique hotel in LA's Westlake neighborhood had been shattered. Bathrooms had been vandalized. In some locations, carpet had been torn off the floor. I mean, why would you go into a hotel and tear the carpet off the floor? Well, I'll tell you why you do that. If you're psychotic or on drugs, that's why you do it. Emails obtained by the Los Angeles Times show that social workers assigned to the hotel reported that homeless people were threatening the staff, they were assaulting people, and so on. Instead of recognizing what a disaster this whole idea was, Los Angeles politicians, including the mayor, want to double down on it. They want to buy the Mayfair outright and do it all over again. The LA Times spoke to one resident who lives across from the hotel for his thoughts on the idea, and here's what he said, quote, the neighborhood is still recovering from Project Room Key. The purchase of the Mayfair would just completely destroy the community once again. That's a reasonable concern because it happens everywhere that homeless people are put in hotels. During COVID, the Lucerne Hotel in New York City became a shelter for the homeless. And what happened next? Well, according to NBC News, quote, many on the Upper West Side said that their quality of life had been suffering as a result, complaining about having to walk by people passed out on sidewalks and performing lewd acts along the street. Now, I could go on because there are many places where they have tried this. But you get the idea. It always works this way. Now, to be clear, I'm not looking to just dump on the homeless or mock them. These people are clearly suffering. They are in an unenviable situation, no matter how you slice it. But we have to be honest about what they're suffering from exactly. And we have to be honest that one way or another, whether it's because of addiction or psychosis or character flaws or anything else, they're almost always homeless due to their own behavior, their own choices. These choices and behavior need to change. And if there's a burgeoning epidemic of homelessness, and there is, then the real crisis is that so many Americans have fallen into these self-destructive patterns of behavior. We can't solve the homeless problem without acknowledging that. Politically correct terms like unhoused are meant to downplay, a homeless person's own role in their own homelessness. But that is the exact opposite of what we should be doing. Ultimately, this becomes a conversation about the crisis of despair in our culture that has led to so many people simply giving up on leading whole and productive lives. Unless we have that conversation, as we've seen in Vermont and Los Angeles, New York and Wyoming and all over the country, the problem will only get much more expensive and much worse. This is societal decay, and it is a choice. And ultimately, productive members of society, people who would never dream of doing hard drugs or of relieving themselves in public or committing lewd acts in public, they are the ones who will bear the cost of that choice. which is why the people who insist on being politically correct about the homeless problem, rather than just being correct about it, are today canceled. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.